Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel SK Economics. So, today we'll discuss a very small but I think a very interesting topic, that is role of RBI in supply side inflation. So, let's start, guys. So, guys, you know that Russia Ukraine war, now, this war has led to many problems in the world economy. But if I have to point out one of the biggest problems that this war has created, and which is spread across various economies, not just confined to the regions where this war has taken place. So that problem is the problem of inflation. And if you look at the data as well, just look at these some big economies. So US is witnessing an inflation of a 40-year high. That is four decadal high inflation. UK is no different. Inflation there is at a 30-year high. Same is the case with Germany. And in Turkey, if you look at the inflation, it is insane, 78%. And if you look at India, so India is also not an exception. Like in India as well, the inflation is pretty high, and we witnessed 8-year high inflation in May, when the CPI inflation was 7.78 percentage, but now it is down to 7.71 percentage in June. So in India, I would say the situation is not that bad if we compare the other, the advanced economies of the world. But still, it is pretty high because it is still above the comfort level of, that is, 4 to 6 percentage of RBI. Now, what are the reasons behind this inflation? So very briefly, let us just touch upon the reasons. So first is the pent up demand. So now to explain this, so if we look at COVID, so अभी देखो जब COVID हुआ था, so there was lockdown, and these advanced economies, so they went ahead with the ultra loose monetary policy, and very aggressive expansionary fiscal policy. So basically they increase the money supply in the economy, and they just paid huge sums of money in the bank accounts of people. बट द प्रॉब्लम वाज जब कोविड था, तो तब उस समय पे इकोनॉमी में लॉकडाउन था, और लॉकडाउन के समय पे लोगों को जो पैसे मिले थे गवर्नमेंट से, तो वो कहीं स्पेंड नहीं कर सकते थे उसको, बिकॉज दे डिड नॉट हैव एनी एवेन्यूज टू स्पेंड ऑन दोज अमाउंट ऑफ मनी. बट व्हेन द इकोनॉमी इज रीओपन, व्हेन द कोविड सबसाइडेड टू सम एक्सटेंट, और जब इकोनॉमी खुलने लगी, सो देन देयर वाज दिस पेंट अप डिमांड. जो डिमांड दबी हुई थी वो अब सरफेस पे आ गई. But of course the supply could not catch up with the demand, because the supply disruptions, they kept on happening because of the multiple waves of COVID, and then the latest disruption because of the Russia Ukraine war. So because of this, there was a mismatch in demand and supply. The demand was more, supply was less, so that led to inflation. And then of course, so this is, you can say, a demand side, a demand side factor are responsible for inflation. But अभी के बारे में अगर हम बात करें, so the major chunk is played by the Russia Ukraine war. And यहाँ पे भी थोड़ा इसको single out करें, so it is because of the high food and fuel prices. Because if you look at the Russian economy, and the countries involved in the war, so Russia is one of the largest crude oil exporters. Now, definitely, if Russia goes into the war, so this will, affect the fuel prices. Russia is also the largest exporter of wheat. Ukraine is the fifth largest exporter. So, because of the war, there are renewed supply chain disruptions, and these have led to high food and fuel prices, and which has ultimately played a very big part in increasing inflation across the world. ओके सो गाइज, नाउ अभी इन्फ्लेशन तो हो गया पूरे वर्ल्ड इकोनॉमी में. सो व्हाट हैज बीन द रेस्पॉन्स अभी, हाउ द authorities have responded. So mainly across the world, if you see the various central banks, so they have adopted the policy of monetary policy tightening. That is, they have increased the policy repo rate in order to curb the inflation. But अभी यहाँ पे एक पॉइंट आता है कि uh, if we talk about the present inflation, so much of it, the majority of it, is caused by the supply chain disruptions. It is because of the supply side issues. But we know that by increasing the repo rate, अभी repo rate को अगर बढ़ाएंगे, so that will just impact the demand only, but not the supply, right? That is, if we look at the RBI's role, so ये जो शॉक हुआ है बिकॉज ऑफ द फूड एंड फ्यूल प्राइसेस, सो these shocks they lie outside the domain of RBI, because RBI cannot do anything, to cool down these food and fuel prices. And also, now the policy challenge now is that कि ये जो food and fuel है, so these comprise 55 percentage of the weightage in the CPI. और अभी ये जो फूड में जो इन्फ्लेशन हो रहा है, टू वर्सन द मैटर्स, this shock is not because of anything in the domestic economy. ये कोई domestic economy हमारे कुछ कुछ उसकी वजह से नहीं हो रहा है. This is coming from external sources, that is because of the war in Europe. So but still, now, having said this, still RBI has increased the repo rate by 90%. I'm sorry, 90 basis points. So what is the reason? I mean, it looks like that food and fuel, these are absolutely out of control of RBI. So अब ये रेपो रेट बढ़ाने से फिर क्या होगा? ऑलरेडी जो एक नेसेंट इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी है जो कि वी वर विटनेसिंग, and because of this war, that economy, the recovery, it got a bit derailed. So अभी वो तो रेपो रेट बढ़ाएंगे तो उससे तो और लॉस हो जाएगा. But then why RBI has increased this repo rate then? Now let us look at, guys, the reasoning or the rationale behind RBI's decision of increasing the repo rate. अभी यहाँ पे एक important concept आता है of the expectation of inflation, like inflationary expectations, that is. So इसको समझने के लिए अभी ये देखते हैं यहाँ पे जो households हैं. Now households look at recent food and fuel prices, and then they form their opinions about what the inflation would be in the future, right? बिकॉज हाउस जो हैं उनका मेजोरिटी जो चंक है एक्सपेंडिचर का वो फूड और फ्यूल पे ही खर्च होता है, राइट? अ मेजर पार्ट ऑफ देयर इनकम इज स्पेंट ऑन फूड एंड फ्यूल. सो वो देखते हैं कि फूड और फ्यूल की क्या प्राइसेस हैं, और उन प्राइसेस के बेसिस पे फिर वो ओपिनियन बनाते हैं दैट व्हाट विल बी द द इन्फ्लेशन इन फ्यूचर, राइट? दे मेक देयर एक्सपेक्टेशंस अबाउट द फ्यूचर इन्फ्लेशन, राइट? और अभी जो उनकी फिर एक बार एक्सपेक्टेशन बन गई about the future inflation, so then they will adjust their current behavior to deal with that situation. Now for example, अगर households का कुछ ऐसी expectation बन गई कि let us say that the price of cars, though that will increase in the future, then what will happen? अगर हमें पता पड़ जाए मुझे आज कि एक कार की वैल्यू उसकी फ्यूचर में बढ़ने वाली है, एंड आई हैव डिसाइडेड टू बाय दैट कार, सो मैं फ्यूचर का वेट नहीं करूंगा क्योंकि मुझे पता है कि फ्यूचर में तो प्राइस बढ़ने वाली है. सो आई विल परचेज दैट कार राइट नाउ, इन द प्रेजेंट. मैं वो अभी खरीद लूंगा. और अगर बाकी सारे हाउस होल्ड्स भी ऐसे ही सोचने लग गए, देन व्हाट विल हैपन? Eventually these all households will increase the demand for cars, and because of the increase in demand for cars, the price of the car will automatically increase. That is, वो फ्यूचर में वो प्राइस अपने आप ही बढ़ जाएगी फिर जब तक वो फ्यूचर आएगा. That is, these expectations will become a reality because of the actions taken by the households today, right? And then what happens, guys, because of these inflationary expectations of the households, so इसके एक second round effect भी होता है. That is, अगर households को लगता है कि inflation future में बढ़ने वाला है, so they do various types of negotiations then with respect to these price markups, the wage negotiations. वो कहेंगे कि अगर फ्यूचर में इन्फ्लेशन हो रहा है so हमारी वेज बढ़ाओ, क्योंकि हमने अगर अभी वेज बढ़ाने के लिए नेगोशिएट नहीं किया तो फ्यूचर में हमें लॉस हो जाएगा, हमारी रियल वेज कम हो जाएगी. Similarly, for rents on houses, transportation costs, prices of services, and so on. So many things. So there are various second round effects as well of these inflationary expectations. और अभी हम इतनी चिंता क्यों कर रहे हैं हाउस होल्ड्स की? देखिए वो बहुत जरूरी है बिकॉज हाउस होल्ड्स दे अकाउंट फॉर क्लोज टू 60% ऑफ इंडिया जीडीपी. हाउ? Because they form a part of these private consumption expenditure, because like GDP, you must be knowing that it is C plus I plus G plus NX. This is by the expenditure method. And this C, that is private consumption expenditure, this accounts for 60% of GDP. Right? So households, I mean, they cannot be ignored. वो जो एक expectations एक बार बना लेंगे so वो those can become a reality, right? Now अभी जब households की expectations, they if अगर सभी households एक एक कोई इन्फ्लेशन एक्सपेक्ट करेंगे, दैट इन्फ्लेशन विल इंक्रीज इन द फ्यूचर, दैट इज इफ इन्फ्लेशन बिकम्स मोर परसिस्टेंट एंड जनरलाइज्ड, तब क्या होगा? तो बिजनेसेस सोचेंगे कि अभी हमारे इन्वेस्ट करने का कोई फायदा नहीं है, because the demand for their products may get postponed at the elevated level of prices in future. उनको लगेगा फ्यूचर में प्राइसेस बढ़ जाएंगे हमारे प्रोडक्ट्स के, और वो बढ़ी हुई प्राइसेस पे लोग डिमांड नहीं करेंगे, सो अभी इन्वेस्टमेंट करने से कोई फायदा नहीं है, एंड बिकॉज ऑफ दिस द वेजेस एंड कॉस्ट दीज विल गो अप। अभी इससे क्या होगा? अगर फर्म्स को वेजेस ज्यादा देने पड़ रहे हैं और कॉस्ट भी बढ़ रही है, सो ऑब्वियसली एक्सपोर्ट कम्पिटिटिवनेस विल बी डैमेज्ड ऑफ दीज फर्म्स। और जो लोग हैं, जो हाउस होल्ड्स हैं, सो दे विल पुल आउट देयर सेविंग्स फ्रॉम बैंक्स, बिकॉज दे विल रियलाइज कि फ्यूचर में इन्फ्लेशन होगा, and because of the inflation our the real savings are nothing. The real interest rate that we are getting from the savings account, that is nothing, right? So they will think that abhi koi fayda nahi hai savings mein, saving account mein paise rakhne ka, so they will pull out their money. और जब भी ऐसा कुछ होता है, then whenever there is an uncertainty in the economy, so people always rush towards gold, because that is referred to as a safe haven. But वो उसमें कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, बट इंडिया की केस में थोड़ी दिक्कत है, बिकॉज वी इम्पोर्ट 86% ऑफ आवर गोल्ड डिमांड, और ये इंपोर्ट करने के लिए हमें फॉरेन एक्सचेंज रिजर्व्स में पे करना पड़ता है, सो देन दिस इज अ बिग प्रॉब्लम। नाउ गाइस, इफ यू सी, अभी हम वापस अगर वो क्वेश्चन पूछें कि आरबीआई ने क्यों रेपो रेट बढ़ा दी बाय 90 basis points, now you see so many things could happen in the economy because of these inflationary expectations. एंड नाउ अगर हम ये एज्यूम करते हैं कि चलो आरबीआई कुछ भी नहीं करता है, because ये सब supply side factors है and all of this, so let us assume that if RBI does nothing, then what will happen? Now this will be seen as accommodating the inflation shock. ये फिर ऐसा लगेगा कि आरबीआई ने गिव अप कर दिया है, आरबीआई ने मान लिया है कि अब तो इन्फ्लेशन होके ही रहेगा, and inflation will persist, it will broaden and it will rise further. I think this is a very very dangerous situation for any economy. But if RBI intervenes, अगर आरबीआई इंटरवीन करता है, कैसे? If RBI increases the interest rates and it tightens the monetary policy and the liquidity conditions to make money expensive, then what will happen? देखो, पहला तो ये डेमोन्स्ट्रेट करेगा कि आरबीआई केयर्स अबाउट पीपल्स एक्सपेक्टेशंस, राइट? This will send a signal to the market that RBI is not here to just sit around, and just see the situation as it unfolds. RBI has some tools and RBI is worried about the inflation. ये एक सिग्नल पहुंचना ही काफी है. That is, RBI is worried about hinging to keep this uh, inflationary expectations hinged. उसको unhinged नहीं करना चाहता RBI, right? To maintain people's faith in RBI's commitment to price stability. एंड सेकेंडली, अगर आरबीआई ने ये इन्फ्लेशनरी एक्सपेक्टेशंस जो हैं इनको सक्सेसफुली एंकर कर लिया, सो दिस विल आल्सो हेल्प इन प्रिवेंटिंग द सेकंड राउंड इफेक्ट्स ऑफ फूड एंड फ्यूल प्राइसेस, राइट गाइस? एंड थर्डली, अब जो डिस्क्रिशनरी स्पेंडिंग जो लोग कर रहे थे, सो दैट विल आल्सो डिक्रीज, बिकॉज पीपल विल रियलाइज दैट जो फूड एंड फ्यूल की प्राइसेस बढ़ गई हैं, सो उसमें ही उनकी मेजर चंक ऑफ इनकम चली गई है. So now they will adjust their expenditure on the remaining items so that overall वो जो उनका expenditure है वो बजट में ही रहे उनके. So summarizing this, we can say that in effect the RBI's actions will cause inflation other than that related to food and fuel, or what is called the core inflation, to ease, and this will bring down the headline inflation. That is, अगर जब वो रेपो रेट आरबीआई ने बढ़ाया, सो ऑफ कोर्स फूड और फ्यूल की प्राइस पे कोई इतना डायरेक्ट असर नहीं होगा, बट क्योंकि वो कोर इन्फ्लेशन को असर करेगा, the increase in repo rate will decrease the core inflation, and then this will help in anchoring the inflationary expectations of households, and that will further help in bringing down the headline inflation. Okay guys, now baat yahin pe khatam nahi hoti hai. There is one more point, that is of foreign investors. Now if you see foreign investors, so these are particularly very sensitive to monetary policy actions, और ये देखते हैं कि एक कंट्री की मॉनेटरी पॉलिसी जो अथॉरिटी है वो किस तरह से काम कर रही है. नाउ अगर वो ऐसा देखते हैं कि आरबीआई इज वरिड अबाउट द इन्फ्लेशन इन द इकोनॉमी, एंड दे टेंड टू सी देम, आई मीन अगर उन्होंने ऐसा देखा कि आरबीआई इज वेरी रेजिल्यूट एंड वेरी डिटरमाइंड in its intent to protect the value of Indian assets, so then they will not pull out their investments from India, right? उनको लगेगा कि that their investment is safe. That is, in fact, they will invest more into the Indian economy with the assurance of the reserve, with the assurance of the resolve to to preserve the macroeconomic and financial stability. And this resolve is given by RBI, right? और इससे फिर क्या फायदा होगा? जब कैपिटल फ्लोज जो हैं वो अगर बाहर नहीं जाएंगे, सो दैट जो जो रुपी पे जो डेप्रिसिएशन प्रेशर है, that will also decrease, because right now, guys, you know that rupee is facing huge pressure to depreciate. Rupee is at an all time low with respect to dollars. So अगर ये सब चीज आरबीआई करता है, so this is also helping in in reducing the capital outflows from the Indian economy, and in a way this is also helping to curb the imported inflation as well, right? Because of the control of a depreciation of Indian rupee. All right, guys, so this is the end of the video, and this was a very small video, and I think uh, I hope that you liked the video, and if it was helpful to you, then do like the video, and post your comments, any thoughts about the video, and also subscribe to the channel. Okay, thank you.